Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Darrow here with another options and play video update. So this one's going to be a longer video because next week is really the main event of this earnings reporting period. Just big names, huge names, really, like names that on their own could really significantly impact the indices. Um, so buckle up. It's gonna be a very busy week. As usual, though, things start off Monday a little bit slower. Nothing before the open that catches my eye. After the close, just a couple smaller, maybe like lesser follow names. So like Logitech, CDNS, which is like another one. These aren't stocks I really pay much attention to or trade very often, so I don't think I'm gonna do anything with those. Tuesday before the open, there's actually quite a few kind of higher profile industrial reports. 3M pricing in about 6 points. Um, I'd say so. I'd say this and UPS, which I'll get to in a second, probably the two of the more interesting setups. This has been smoked off of an earplug lawsuit. I guess I don't follow it closely enough to know what developments are around that, but I mean, it does seem like technically it's a setup where it should move. I mean, obviously, just 6 points. It's well off of 6 points from the recent low, and then there's plenty of room higher. So to me, it does seem like something that should move. So maybe something like speculative low debit if I play it. Um, GE about 4.5 points is what's priced in. It's been moving pretty consistently around earnings this year, but I guess I just don't see much with the setup this quarter. But maybe like a day trade candidate after the numbers come out. GM, so about 2.25 is what they're looking for. So I tend to consider GM and Ford more longer term swing ideas when they're working, and they're not usually as much of a focus on earnings for me. I'll see what GM says, see how the stock reacts. Maybe there'll be a setup after it for like maybe like a several week or month trade, but I don't think I'm gonna have any options on earnings on that one. Same thing with Ford, which actually reports later in the week. UPS, so about 12.5 points is what's priced in. The reason why I think this is interesting is because FedEx was a disaster when they reported in September, right? So was obviously knocked pretty sharply lower along with FedEx and hasn't recovered. Seems like it could be due for a large swing. I think to me the biggest hurdle is really just the option pricing because it seems high. But I mean after FedEx, maybe it's justified. If I did a volatility strategy, I'd really have to get risk down because 12 and a half may not leave a ton of room unless it has like a really big surprise. Biogen, so about 14.5 points is what's priced in. I don't know if earnings are going to move the needle much, but I've been eyeing this one after the Alzheimer's data because it really, after the big pop on the data, it hasn't been able to turn the corner. So for me, like the trade revolves around whether it can turn the corner and start to get something going, at least for like a retest of the high. But that's probably not like an earnings thing. It's probably more like after earnings. So definitely something I'm gonna be watching. I don't know as far as like options what I'm gonna be doing with it. All right, after the close on Tuesday, this is when things get going. Um, Google, so about 675 is what's priced in. So this and Microsoft, first of the tech titans, both off their recent low, but still down near the worst levels of the year. Google's hanging around 100, which is actually a pretty big spot technically. So of this and Microsoft, which I'll talk about in a second, I mean this one looks a little bit more interesting technically because it's I mean it's really kind of like a make or break level. So you can when I go back further, you can see what I mean. Um, so I mean option pricing it's not super cheap, but it did move more than that last quarter, so maybe leave some room. Also, will probably impact Meta quite a bit before they report on Wednesday. Microsoft 13.5 points was priced in. It's been pretty consistent around earnings, and even after warning in June, I mean, snapped back really quickly last quarter. Um, I don't know if you can expect the same magnitude of a move because it's a little bit different environment right now, but I guess I'd be slightly more positive on Microsoft after the drop it's had. Just I don't know if I'm going to actually play it, but if I had to do something, it might be more on the bull side. End phase, so about 31.5 points is what's priced in. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, it was a leader in the solar sector up until few weeks ago and really started to roll over. And they've really crushed it a few quarters in a row. So I guess I wouldn't be surprised to see this possibly catch a bid ahead of earnings, especially after the latest pullback. And earnings are probably going to move the needle on the entire solar sector. So there could be some sympathy play opportunities. So Solar Edge, Sun Power, because First Solar also reports next week too. Visa, so about 9.5 is what they're looking for. First, the big credit card names to report outside of AXP. Probably won't be something I have options on for earnings, but it can move a decent amount on the day of the report, so might be a day trade candidate. And same thing with like MasterCard, which reports on Thursday. Before they open on Wednesday, Boeing, so about $9 is what they're looking for. Probably the most interesting name Wednesday morning. Last quarter popped on better cash flow guidance, and it was the first decent report in a long time. We'll see if it can follow that up with another one, or does it have issues again? But I will say the stock can definitely be volatile, and it does seem due for a move down here. And actually, the way I see it, option pricing isn't too outrageous either. And then Hilton, also Wednesday before the open, about $12 is what's priced in, but those are monthly options, November monthly, so you're paying for a lot of time. It's first to the hotel stock, so it could move that group around. Actually, maybe even like travel stocks in general, because you also have Google, which moves travel sometimes with the Google search trends. I mean, as far as like a setup, doesn't look very interesting one way or the other, but it is the first of the sector, so has that element of surprise to it. After the close on Wednesday, the big one's Meta. 16 points is what's priced in. I mean, they just really need a good report. Stock is in a tailspin, can't sustain bounces. It does seem like the risk reward is skewed to the upside for a big move, right? After getting knocked lower on Snap now, but I mean they're just gonna have to deliver, and I don't know what the chances of that are. It's a tougher setup, but maybe like a speculative play if you think they can actually turn in like a decent quarter, because there could be more upside. Invisalign, so about 22 points is what's priced in here. It didn't get punished for a bad report in July, but it's also a different environment now. Hovering right around its 52-week low, it really seems due for a move. I do wish option pricing would come down a bit, but overall seems like a okay setup for a volatility strategy. Ford pricing in 85 cents. Same story as GM. Would be more of like a longer term swing if there's something good that develops after earnings. Lending Club. So 225 is what's priced in, but those are monthly options. The reason why I think this is interesting is because lending names are really hit or miss right now, and this is sitting right around its recent low. It only has monthly options, so it does remove some of the potential, but there have been some really large moves on this on occasion, and it could be a read-through for UPST, so I might look at that as for a sympathy play. ServiceNow, so 29 points. That's what's priced in. Big software report. I mean, it's in a really steady downtrend. That definitely makes it a tougher setup. But Microsoft might move it. We'll see where it is after the Microsoft numbers, but if it's in this like steady downward trend, I mean, it just feels like an avoid. But maybe if Microsoft knocks it around quite a bit, then maybe I can look at it. But I mean, right now, it just seems more like an avoid. Teladoc, so 425 is what's priced in. I mean, it's just such like a steady slide. Keeps disappointing around earnings. Hard to be positive on it, but also feels like expectations are very low to me. And I guess the one good thing about it is that it has moved pretty consistently, so maybe it does again. For the open on Thursday, CAT, so about $10 is what they're looking for. It's kind of a choppy name last few months. Chart doesn't stand out to me one way or the other personally. It has had some larger moves this year on earnings, but I just don't have much of a read on it, so I might wait until the numbers come out and see if there's an interesting setup there. MasterCard, like I said, probably move off of Visa. They're pricing in 15.5 points, but you're gonna have to see where it is come Thursday morning and see if there's any trade left there. Shopify. So this one's an interesting one. Shop and Overstock too. They both report Thursday morning. So Shop's pricing in 3.5. Had a huge positive reaction to earnings last quarter, which were weaker results, but momentum's completely gone. Stock is below the big 30 support level. To me, it seems due for a move. And option pricing, it seems modest. So this to me seems to set up well for a volatility strategy. And overstock. So you can see kind of like a similar chart. 3.5 points actually is what they're pricing into, so very similar to Shopify. It's going to need something to get it going. I mean, it's been a range. Could be volatile. I mean, honestly, like next Thursday is going to be a huge day for e-commerce stocks because you have Shop and Overstock in the pre-market, and then Amazon after the close. So maybe like Etsy, eBay, Wayfair, right? Could be some like sympathy plays because it's just going to be a huge day for all things e-commerce. And speaking of Amazon, so after the close on Thursday, this and Apple, huge names, pricing in about 9.25. Amazon had a good quarter in July. It's given all back. Just had a Prime Day last week, and what's interesting about this quarter specifically for Amazon is that they're going to be forecasting the holiday season. So definitely big report for them. Good or bad, Amazon has been consistently moving on earnings this year. So I mean, this seems like a setup where it should have a large swing again. Apple, $8 is what's priced in. This is the wild card of the mega caps. I have no clue what to make of this setup. And Apple's been a little bit of a relative outperformer too, so I mean, I feel like that complicates it a bit. I really wish option pricing was lower because at 8, it seems like options are expensive relative to what it typically moves. Plus, it just really hasn't had a big move on earnings in a while. But maybe this is the quarter where it breaks that streak. I have no idea. This is really a true toss-up to me. So I have no clue what to expect from Apple. On the other hand, on Intel, I feel like I have a clue what to expect. I mean, 225 is what's priced in. It's been the definition of consistency. I mean, it just consistently quarter after quarter after quarter after quarter gets smashed on earnings. It's closed down so many quarters in a row that you keep thinking everybody's expecting bad numbers and a weak reaction, but then it keeps doing it. So I don't know. The stock has been selling for a few months now. It's so weak, but I mean, really, just for the last like 2 years, the way it's reacted to earnings, it's just really hard to be too upbeat. Plus, it's a semi, and I've been avoiding semis this quarter. Pinterest, so 3.5 points is what's priced in. It's going to be a long week of social media ad tech stuff, so we'll have to see where Pinterest is on Thursday. But this can move on its own. It doesn't always like operate with like the other ones. And there's been reports of possible M&A, so that's kept it a little bit stronger than others. So it could still be a mover, whether that's higher or lower. Catch up on the downside. So it might be like a nice late in the week volatility strategy, depending on where it's trading. And then before the open on Friday, AbbVie, so about $6 is what's priced in. There are a lot of pharma reports during the week actually, but this might be the only one that I do anything with. It's had back-to-back big moves on earnings. Been range bound for a few months, so it seems like it could be due for a move. I don't know if I'm going to have options necessarily into the print, but I'll probably be eyeing it Friday morning for a trade, especially if it starts to push through either side of this range. And then Chevron, which is pricing in 8, and Exxon, which is pricing in 5. So 2 huge energy reports. Exxon's acted better recently, which you can see. But Chevron actually had the stronger of the quarters in July, and it's still off its June high. So I don't know. I guess if I went with one, it might be Chevron, just to see if it plays some catch up to Exxon, which is already at or above its previous high. Chevron still seems to have some room just to get back to where it was in June, versus Exxon, which is already there and then some. So we'll see, but definitely gonna wrap up the week with like a big morning of energy news. So feels like the sector could be volatile on Friday. All right, so just even outside of the names I mentioned, I mean, there's a ton of other companies reporting. So it's going to be an absolutely jam-packed week. So let's hope for some good action, right? So, if you like this video and you're looking for more information about trading earnings with options, please follow up with the link in the description of the video for more information on options in play. Have a great weekend, stay well, and I will talk to you all on Monday.